One of the best and most wonderful realizations I learned, again, through therapy, was that my relationship with my mom did not end on January 20th, 2017. By having a space with someone who's neutral to the situation, I've been able to share stories and also make peace with some of things that in our relationship that were unresolved. I remember Christmas 2015 was the last Christmas we were really able to celebrate Christmas as a whole family. I had told my therapist that I was carrying around this guilt that I had ruined my mom's last Christmas. You see, Christmas was my mom's absolute favorite holiday. She had so many decorations, and that was all fun, but she just loved our family and friends coming together to enjoy the generosity and spirit of the season. It makes sense why my mom loved Christmas. She really was Christmas in human form. So back to Christmas Eve 2015, my mom and I had really a silly disagreement, and it had kind of festered even to after the holiday party ending. And I just remember being in the kitchen, and my immediate family was there, and we were all just kind of in crabby moods, to put it lightly. I remember thinking to myself, gosh, this is not how I saw Christmas Eve going. This is not good, but we're all crabby. Let's go to sleep, and then, we'll start over tomorrow. And next year, Christmas Eve will be better. I wish we could have had that Christmas Eve all together. So I told my therapist, I don't know why, but I feel guilty. I apologized at the time, and I don't know how to move forward with this. She's not here to have this conversation. My therapist said to me, well, Megan, let's imagine that your mom is sitting right next to you on the couch. What would you say to her? I said, I would say, Mom, I'm sorry I behaved like a brat that night. And I have just been feeling this guilt since that evening. I hope that you can forgive me. And I really hope I didn't ruin your last Christmas. I love you so much. My therapist then said to me, great, your mom just heard your apology. So again, she's still sitting next to you. What do you think she would say back? I laughed because I knew exactly what she would say to me. She would say, oh, Megan, yes, you were a brat. But I also wasn't in the best mood either, and we were not all at our best. To be honest, I don't even think about that. I think about Henry and Jane and Eric and Andrew opening their presents. I remember drinking champagne and eating that delicious dinner all together. I remember the laughter. I remember the joy. So please stop holding on to this. This is not a burden you need to bear. I forgive you and I love you. Okay, now go grab us 2 glasses of Chardonnay. Let's catch up. This might seem like a very simple thing, but that role modeling has been very critical in helping me repair some wounds from our relationship that I didn't get to do with her in person. And in fact, it's allowed our relationship to continue. Even today in my day-to-day, sometimes if I'm faced with a difficult decision or wonder what my mom would say, I just take that pause to think about what I would say to her and what she would say back. I find it incredibly comforting. Whether you are grieving or you're supporting someone who is, grief is hard. It's not a problem we can fix, which is very frustrating for us humans because we like to fix problems. Now that I'm 4 years out, I can tell you that there's a George Eliot quote that I really resonate with. George Eliot said, "She was no longer wrestling with the grief, but could sit down with it as a lasting companion and make it a share of her thoughts." I love that imagery. If you remember me talking about the circle all filled in, and that's the grief fog. The circle is still the same size, and it's definitely within me. I always kind of imagine it right by my heart. But instead of it consuming me from head to toe, I have grown around the grief. The grief did not grow around me. I'm here today even be able to talk about this so publicly for the first time because I continue to put in the work and recognize I don't have all the answers, but I know that I can continue to heal. Now, when I feel those pains of grief, instead of it feeling like a massive tidal wave trying to knock me off my feet, I feel like it's just a low tide or high tide wave that comes over and crests and then falls. Don't get me wrong, there are still days that I find myself devastated that she's not here, but I know better what I need to regulate my emotions and get back to living. I think that we all are experiencing grief right now with this pandemic. I want you to know that it is okay to be grieving and grateful during this time. Both can exist. When the time comes for you to support a grieving loved one, remember that you can't fix it. And that's okay that that's hard and uncomfortable. Meghan Markle said, in being invited to share our pain, together we take the first steps toward healing. If someone comes to you and wants to share, please, if you can, allow that space, whether it's a text message or being in person or Zooming, whatever it looks like, to let that person express how they're feeling. I know sometimes we all have a hard time thinking about words of comfort or things to say. Oftentimes that big question of, how are you, feels really overwhelming. So in fact, I'd like to offer asking, how are you today? How are you right now? That is a much easier question to answer. Along with giving those, warm, comforting words of, I'm so sorry for your loss, or sending my deepest condolences, let your loved ones know that you are there for them, and then be there for them, not just in the first days and weeks, but in the days, weeks, years leading afterwards. Finally, I would advise just being specific with how you can help. I can't tell you how many lovely friends and family said, let me know if there's anything I can do. Again, not so great at asking for help. And so I've learned that when people were very specific about what they could do, that made all the difference. So getting a text message or a phone call like, hey, I'm at Ralph's, do you need anything? And me being like, I'm pretty sure I smell, so yes, can you get me some deodorant? Just simple things like that. Being able to sit in silence with your loved one, letting them talk, cry, scream, whatever that looks like, is so, so helpful. Remembering anniversaries and anything traditional that person loved, like for my mom, baking bread. It is so wonderful when people share those stories with us. For something literally every single person will experience in their life, we don't talk about loss and grief nearly enough. I have a vision for the future, and I know that we can get there by living authentically and living a life with open to vulnerability. I'm currently reading a book called It's Okay to Not Be Okay by Megan Devine, and I really love how she describes what the future of grief could look like. Instead of having expectations of grief being on or off, you're either in total grief fog mode or you've completed the stages and you're done and over it. We really should be living in middle ground. She describes it beautifully, saying it's a place that honors the full breath of grief, which is really the full breath of love. When I think about my mom and every loved one that we have lost, I think about the things I love the most about them, and I try to be those things every day and also pass on those characteristics and strengths to my daughter. My mom left a legacy of love, not only with me, but with my brother, my dad, her sister, all family and friends. She touched so many lives, and I believe that people remember her because she made them feel valued and important. Right before the holidays, I read this quote, and it really stuck with me. If you know someone who has lost a very important person in their life, and you're afraid to mention them because you may make them sad by reminding them that they died, you're not reminding them. They didn't forget that they died. What you're reminding them of is that you remembered that they lived. And that is the greatest gift. Today, I am bigger than my grief. I have grown around my grief. The grief is here to stay, but that's okay. It's a reminder that with great love comes great grief, but I can carry both around as a companion with me for the rest of my life. Remember my greatest fear? Only part of it came true. My mom died, but I am surviving it. One breath, 1 hour, and one day at a time. Thank you.